Single Dad's incredible act of kindness revealed he fixed a billionaire's bike and found love. Mark, a single dad in his early 40s, woke up to the chirping of robins outside his cozy, weathered house. The morning sun spilled golden light into their modest kitchen, illuminating the remnants of a hasty breakfast. Lily, his spirited teenage daughter, dashed around like a whirlwind, excited for the community outreach bike ride. "Come on, Dad. We're gonna change the world today," she grinned, her face lit with youthful zeal. As they mounted their bikes, Mark felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he pushed it down, focusing on the moments that really mattered. The laughter shared during those late-night talks with Lily had become their safe haven, a cushion against life's relentless struggles. Today, they were here to bond with others in their tight-knit neighborhood and support local charities. The streets were alive with the sounds of laughter and bell jingles as residents greeted each other. There was a familiarity in the air, old friends and new faces mingling, all for a common cause. But as they reached the park's entrance, a sight caught their attention: a luxury car parked awkwardly off the bike trail. Standing beside it, looking utterly defeated, was Andrew, a billionaire who exuded wealth and anxiety in equal measure. His expensive bike lay stranded, a flat tire its only notable trait. Mark hesitated briefly, should he really approach? But the sight of Andrew fuming over his bike silently urged him forward. "Need a hand?" Mark asked, his voice warm and inviting. To his surprise, relief washed over Andrew's face. The two worlds collided, one man hardworking and down-to-earth, the other steeped in riches yet tangled in frustration. As Mark deftly repaired the bike, every turn of the wrench was a reminder of his own resilience. The sun felt warmer with every laugh exchanged, every story shared. "You've got a real talent for this," Andrew admitted, sensing the authenticity in Mark. "I want to invite you and Lily to a charity gala I'm hosting." Eyes sparkling with excitement, Lily nudged Mark, though he felt a tug of reluctance. They were from different worlds. But that gleam in her eyes was hard to resist. Later, they arrived at the gala, engulfed by a swirl of glitz and glamour, a striking contrast to their own straightforward, humble life. Among suits and sparkling dresses, Mark felt invisible, an interloper. Yet Lily's laughter rang through the room as she connected with Emma, Andrew's niece. The two girls clicked instantly, almost as if their friendship could bridge the economic divide that separated their dads, something Mark couldn't shake from his mind. But just as things began to flourish, the whispers behind their backs clouded the night. Fancy jackets and nose-in-the-air attitudes reminded Mark of the gap between them. Misunderstandings began to creep in, gathering like storm clouds overhead. In this glittering world, the weight of judgment felt heavier than ever. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the night pulled tight around them, a crisis erupted in their community, compelling Mark to leap into action. His instinct to help others shone brightly through the darkness, turning Mark into a local hero. But as the weight of his humility was tested, his friendship with Andrew was brought into sharp relief. With the realities of their lives laid bare, they faced their own biases, Mark wrestling with feelings of inadequacy and Andrew grappling with the true meaning of connection. As the sun began to set on their contrasting lives, both men stood at a crossroads. Would this act of kindness lead to a bond or deepen the divides? Their choices hung in the air like the last fleeting rays of daylight, leaving everyone anxious to see what would unfold next. Mark could feel the unease hanging in the air like thick fog. The gala, once a place of joyful chatter, now felt charged with tension. He glanced over at Lily, laughing effortlessly with Emma, and a pang of pride mixed with worry settled in his stomach. He wanted this moment to last for her sake, but the whispers and glances from others dug at his confidence like icy winds. After what felt like an eternity, Andrew approached Mark, a small smile attempting to cut through the awkwardness. "Are you okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his eyes. It's just, everything feels a bit overwhelming. Mark ran a hand through his hair, wishing to shake off the whispers drowning their shared moment of kindness. I want Lily to have fun, but I feel out of place here. Andrew nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. I get it. These events can be tough. But let us try to make the most of it. As if on cue, Andrew caught the eye of a couple nearby, who were whispering rather loudly about the bike fixer. Mark could feel the heat rising in his cheeks as Andrew shifted uncomfortably, his facade of confidence faltering. Lily, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, darted over, looking from her father to Andrew, her excitement dimming. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Just some party talk, Mark replied, forcing a smile. He wanted to shield her from the judgments, but in his heart, he knew it was more complicated than that. I love your dress, Emma chimed in, trying to lighten the mood, her voice cheerful and bright. It's so pretty. Can we go dance? Mark watched as the girls linked arms, pulling each other away to join the dance floor. Their joy was infectious, breaking through the tension like sunlight piercing through cloud cover. Mark felt a swell of gratitude watching Lily, her smile lighting up the world around her, but the moment was fleeting. Soon after, Andrew leaned closer. You have an amazing daughter. I admire how well you've raised her. Mark felt warmth spreading through him at the compliment, pushing some of his doubt aside. Thanks. It's been a journey, raising her alone. Some days are harder than others. Andrew hesitated, then took a deep breath. I'm not that different, you know. All this, he gestured at the luxurious surroundings. It can be isolating too. You can have everything yet feel like you have nothing. Mark's gaze shifted from Andrew to the dance floor. He wanted to believe him but found it hard to see past the glimmer of wealth that shone brighter than the tatters of his own life. I suppose we all have our struggles. The sincerity hanging between them felt like a bridge being built in real time, a connection slowly blossoming as they shared their truths. Just then, a commotion from the other side of the hall drew their attention. A crowd had gathered, eyes wide with shock. Is everything okay? Lily called out from where she stood, her excitement morphing into concern. The sharp yelp of a child's cry pierced the air. Adrenaline surged through Mark as he instinctively hopped up, his protective instincts kicking in. Let us check it out. As they made their way through the crowd, a heart-stopping sense of urgency filled the space around them. Mark gripped Andrew's arm, propelled forward by that familiar need to help. And in that moment, everything shifted. Would they emerge from this crisis united in purpose, or would this incident drive them further apart? Just beyond the throng, a child sat on the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. A woman knelt beside her, helpless. The wreck of their event was becoming clearer by the second. Mark's heart raced as he exchanged a glance with Andrew. His expression was a mix of determination and fear. This was their moment to step up, but would their alliance hold? As they leaned in to offer help, a sudden twist in fate threatened to change everything. Mark pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding. The sight of the little girl, no older than 6, overwhelmed him with protectiveness. She was sobbing, her small hands clutching a broken toy. The adults around her seemed frozen, unsure of how to act. Mark knelt down beside her, Andrew close behind. Hey there, Mark said softly, trying to meet her scared eyes. What happened? Her voice came out in a choked sob. I lost my toy. She pointed to a nearby table where a group of children had gathered, clearly unsure if they should laugh or comfort. Mark glanced at Andrew, who knelt next to him, his usual confidence replaced by a gentle approach. Can we help you find it? Andrew asked, his voice low and soothing. The little girl's tears slowed, and she nodded, wiping her watery cheeks with the back of her hand. Yeah, I dropped it over there. She said, her finger trembling as she pointed toward the group of giggling kids. Mark and Andrew stood up, glancing once more at each other before moving toward the table. As they navigated the crowd, Mark felt something change within himself. The whispers had faded into background noise. His focus had shifted from the judgment he felt earlier to the urgent need of this child. He felt lighter, as if the weight of the gala's tension was lifting off his shoulders. "Okay," Mark said to Andrew as they reached the table. "Let us see if we can help." "Hey!" Andrew called out to the kids. "Has anyone seen a toy? A little girl lost one." His voice had an authority that stopped the laughter and turned the children's attention toward them. "Is it a purple unicorn?" One of the kids piped up, her eyes wide with excitement. "Yeah!" the little girl exclaimed, her face lighting up with hope. The little group of children began searching the area, glancing under tables and behind chairs. Mark watched as their tiny bodies scrambled to help, the sound of their laughter echoing against the luxurious walls that had felt so oppressive just moments ago. He couldn't help but feel a wave of optimism wash over him. Maybe, just maybe, the spirit of the gala wasn't completely lost. While the kids scoured the floor, Mark stood to the side, catching Andrew's eye. "You know," Mark said, a smile breaking through. "You're really good at this. It's like you're meant for it." Andrew returned the smile, his tension visibly easing. "I never thought I'd be here, doing this. But here we are." A clamor erupted from the children, and Mark turned just in time to see a boy emerging with the toy in hand, the purple unicorn, still in its glory. The little girl squealed with joy and barreled toward them, snatching the toy from the boy's hand and cradling it against her chest like it was made of pure gold. "Thank you. Thank you," she squeaked, radiating innocence and happiness. Mark felt a rush of satisfaction swell inside him. In that moment, he realized that kindness had the power to transcend the cold barriers of wealth and judgment. If only people would take a moment to accept. The little girl dashed back to her mother, who hugged her tightly. Mark turned to look at Andrew. "We did something good," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yeah, we did," Andrew replied with a warmth in his gaze. They stood there together, caught up in the moment, but a shadow of doubt crept back into Mark's mind. Was this connection between them simply a product of the chaos? Or was this the start of something real? Suddenly, the loudspeaker crackled, announcing the arrival of an unexpected guest, and everyone turned to listen, the ambience shifting yet again. A silence fell over the crowd. Mark felt Andrew tense beside him. What could possibly shake this gathering up even more? Whatever it was, it would surely unravel the progress they'd just made. What had they just gotten themselves into? Mark felt a chill run down his spine. The air had shifted in the room, thickening with anticipation. He could see people whispering to one another, eyes darting towards the stage as the murmurs became a wave of curiosity. Andrew's fingers clenched at his side, a flicker of worry crossing his face. As the host introduced the surprise guest, Mark squinted through the crowd to catch a glimpse. Who could it be? Every celebrity in the city seemed to be present: billionaires, famous philanthropists, and socialites. What could one person possibly bring to this already extravagant event? "Ladies and gentlemen," the hostess' voice boomed through the speaker, "please welcome our special guest tonight, the renowned entrepreneur and community leader, Jordan Blake." As the crowd erupted into applause, Mark felt Andrew stiffen beside him. He had heard that name before, but it was less about admiration and more about caution. Jordan Blake was not just another businessman. He was a figure that stirred debates, inspiring admiration from some and disdain from others. His ruthless approach in the corporate world had made waves, and there were plenty of stories that painted a picture of him as cold-hearted. Mark watched as a tall figure emerged from the shadows. Jordan moved confidently to the center of the stage, a magnetic presence that instantly demanded attention. He looked effortlessly stylish in an expensive suit, his dark hair neatly combed back. But what caught Mark's eye was not just the man's appearance, it was the way his smile flickered across his face, first reserved, then blossoming into something genuine when he noticed the audience. "We are here tonight for a reason," Jordan began, his voice commanding yet surprisingly warm. "This gala is not just about luxury. It's about our responsibility to those around us. I stand before you today as a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can create ripples of change. The crowd was captivated, caught in the spell of his charisma. Mark found himself feeling oddly conflicted, as if a pendulum swung between admiration and skepticism. He glanced over at Andrew, who looked even more uneasy than before. "What's wrong?" Mark whispered. I don't trust him," Andrew replied, his eyes narrowed. "It's all for show. He'll manipulate it to work in his favor." Before Mark could respond, Jordan continued with a story about a recent experience that had reshaped his perspective. He spoke of a young boy in his neighborhood, a child struggling under the weight of his own circumstances. The tale was heartfelt, describing how a chance encounter changed both their lives. "I found him fixing an old bike," Jordan said, his voice softening. "His bike was his escape, his joy. I could have easily handed him money to buy a new one, but instead, I decided to teach him how to fix it together." The audience softened in response, some nodding as they absorbed the lesson buried in his words. Mark's heart, which had been beating faster with confusion, now found a steadier rhythm. He could sense the importance of connection as a simple act of kindness. But as Jordan spoke more, Mark felt figures from his own past creeping into his mind, memories of efforts that had been tainted by motives that were not as pure. As the speech wrapped up, Mark couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Was Jordan really changing, or was this another calculated move? Andrew grabbed Mark's arm, breaking his reverie. "We need to stay alert. If you're going to get close to this guy, watch your back." Just as Mark nodded in agreement, a commotion broke out at the edge of the crowd. Someone shouted, drawing every eye in their direction. The murmur escalated to shocked gasps. Something unexpected was unfolding, and it felt like they were standing on the brink of another wave of chaos. "What's happening?" Mark strained to see, dread creeping back into his chest. Whatever it was, one thing was clear: this night was far from over, and he couldn't predict what new challenge awaited. As the crowd began to part, Mark felt a surge of anxiety course through him. There were answers waiting, but at what cost? What was waiting on the other side of the unfolding drama? Mark pushed through the thinning crowd, his heart racing as fear clawed at him. The whispers intensified, escalating into a frantic buzz that filled the air with tension. What had caused this uproar? He squeezed past a tall figure, barely able to make out the scene unfolding at the front. "Step back. Give her some space." A security guard's commanding voice broke through the noise, and Mark caught a glimpse of a woman crumpled on the floor. It was hard to see her face, but the look of panic etched on the features he could see sent chills down his spine. "Someone call 911. Someone shouted, but no one moved, paralyzed by shock. The room felt as if it had closed in on them, heavy and suffocating. Mark's instincts kicked in. He knelt beside the woman, pushing through the spectators who were both curious and horrified. Her face was pale, and her breaths were shallow. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked softly, hoping to anchor her to the moment. She blinked, tears glistening in her eyes. "Please help me." Her voice was barely a whisper, cutting through the noise like a knife. Mark glanced up at Andrew, who was still standing a few steps back, clearly torn about jumping in. "Get help," Mark urged, knowing Andrew's strength could cut through the waves of uncertainty. Andrew's eyes widened, but he nodded, then turned to weave through the crowd in search of assistance. Mark pulled his attention back to the woman, feeling her pulse race beneath his fingertips. He could sense the weight of the atmosphere, everyone's eyes on them, waiting. "It's going to be okay. Just breathe with me," he said, mimicking deep inhalations. "In and out. You're safe. Focus on my voice." Minutes felt like hours as he calmed her, the cacophony of onlookers fading to a dull roar. Just then, Jordan Blake stepped closer, the gleam of determination in his eyes as he watched Mark's efforts. "Is she conscious? What happened?" he asked, his commanding presence shifting the attention back to him. "She needs help. Just keep everyone back," Mark urged, never breaking his focus on the woman. For a moment, it felt as if they were the only two people in the room, suspended in time amidst the chaos. Then he heard Andrew return, panting and guiding two medics through the crowd. Right here, right here. Mark pointed, and they quickly knelt, assessing the woman with practiced efficiency. As one of the medics spoke softly to her, Mark could feel a strange connection forming like threads pulling them together as she glanced at him with gratitude. With the medics taking charge, Mark felt the pressure ease from his chest but not the anxiety that lingered. Jordan stood nearby, watching the entire scenario unfold, and Mark sensed his approval mixed with a tinge of concern. "Thank you," the woman whispered before slipping into unconsciousness, and Mark's heart stuttered. As the medics began to move her, he caught Jordan's eye again. You do care," Mark said, surprised by the words that came out of his mouth. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "This is what it's about, isn't it? It starts with one act." Mark wanted to challenge him, to question his motives, to call out the billionaire's public facade. But the words hung in the air, and he realized that a lot had just changed in how he perceived Jordan. Could someone like him really be as genuine as he claimed? Suddenly, another wave of commotion broke through as a man barged past, shouting angrily. "What did you do to her?" His eyes were wild, a mix of desperation and fear. Mark's heart sank. Was this somehow related? The atmosphere shifted again, tension thickening as all eyes turned toward the man. Mark felt a knot forming in his stomach. Was there a deeper connection between this chaos and the speech they had just heard from Jordan? As the man advanced, chaos erupted once more, shoving laughter and fear into a tangled ball. Violence had breached the walls of their false security, and Mark realized with chilling clarity that they were all far from safe. What hidden truths would unfold in the wake of this night? Mark braced himself, realizing they were just scraping the surface of something far darker than he could have imagined. The man was advancing, his anger palpable, each step echoing in Mark's mind like a warning bell. People began to back away, their expressions a mixture of fear and curiosity, but Mark remained rooted. "Let me through," he muttered under his breath, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Who did this?" The man shouted again, eyes darting over the crowd, searching for someone to accuse. Mark felt a surge of instinct. He had to intervene before the situation turned worse. "Hey! Just take it easy," Mark called out, trying to diffuse the tension. But the man ignored him, continuing to push through, his intense gaze locking onto Mark. "What did you do to her?" he yelled, accusingly. The words hung in the air, laced with desperate anguish. "She needs help." "Look, the medics are right here," Mark replied, gesturing towards the two professionals now crouched beside the unconscious woman, their movements swift and efficient. The man paused. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered in his eyes. But then, it hardened again. "That doesn't mean anything. You were close to her. You must be done something." Mark stood tall, trying to project calm, even as his heart raced. "I didn't do anything to her. I helped her. We all just want to make sure she is okay." The man halted, confusion flickering across his face. It was clear he was struggling to comprehend the chaos. I'm her brother," he stammered, his voice quaking. She just got so scared I didn't know what to do." Shock churned in Mark's chest as he realized the pain behind the man's aggression. "I understand. We're all scared right now. Just let the medics do their job," Mark urged gently. As the brother's expression shifted from rage to despair, the crowd quieted, the tension softening like warm wax. The murmurs turned into empathetic whispers as the weight of reality settled back in. Finally, the brother collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming as he gripped his head in disbelief. Jordan stepped forward, embodying authority, his voice low and supportive. "We need to keep the path clear for the medics. Help is on the way. Give them space." Mark felt a sense of validation. There was strength in vulnerability. As people stepped aside, he made his way closer to the brother still kneeling on the ground. "I know this is hard. I can't even imagine what you're feeling." The brother looked up, his eyes searching Mark's face for any glimmer of hope. Is she going to be okay? Please tell me she will. Mark met the brother's gaze and spoke with conviction, resting a hand gently on his shoulder. Right now, they're doing everything they can. Hold on to that thought, she's not alone. The brother nodded but wiped tears angrily, frustration mixing with fear. It stirred something deep within Mark, the desire to protect, to heal. He hesitated, then added quietly, "It's okay to be scared. Just keep talking to her when she wakes up. That connection helps." For the first time, a small flicker of understanding danced in the brother's eyes. But before Mark could process the weight of the moment, the crowd responded to the arrival of more emergency personnel, sirens blaring outside as the door swung open. "Here comes the cavalry," Andrews said behind him, the tension at ease but the air still thick with worry. Mark didn't take his eyes off the brother. "You're not alone in this. We're all in this together. You'll see her again." Just as Mark formed a bond with the brother, he instinctively reached for Jordan, who stood close, watching intently. He sensed unspoken thoughts lingering between them, like two gears slowly turning, but the moment was cut short as the medics began rolling the woman onto a gurney, the brother standing to follow closely beside them. Just then, Mark heard a crackling voice through the radio and froze. "We're responding to a disturbance at the location, reports of multiple injuries," it blared. Mark's heart sank. What he thought was a single incident was far from over, and the night was unraveling in ways he couldn't yet grasp. "Jordan," Mark started, his voice catching in his throat as he sensed the danger closing. "In on them. What's happening?" Jordan asked, eyes narrowing as they locked onto Mark's. Mark knew he needed answers, and he needed them fast. But what if those answers led them down a path they weren't ready for? He braced himself, heartbeat thumping in his ears. Little did he know, tonight would change everything. Where would this chaos lead them? The chaotic scene around them began to pulsate with an energy that felt almost too heavy to bear. Mark's instincts screamed at him to act, but uncertainty gripped him. He looked back at the brother, who now stood, eyes wide with fear, as medics wheeled his sister away. "I need to go with her," he pleaded, a tremor in his voice. "Let them do their job," Mark said, trying to pull him back from that edge of panic. "They'll take good care of her. They're trained for this." Every part of Mark wanted to shield this man from pain, yet he felt the weight of his own helplessness dragging him down. Jordan stepped closer, the glimmer of authority back in his posture. "We need to stay focused," he said, glancing toward the entrance where frantic voices began to rise outside. "We don't know what else is happening. Our priority is to keep everyone safe right now." A commotion surged from the direction of the entrance. People jostled to catch glimpses of what was unfolding. Mark felt the urgency spill into the air, thickening around them. "Did you hear that?" whispered Andrew, tilting his head toward the noise. "Sounds like it's getting worse." Mark felt bile rise in his throat. "We can't afford to lose control here," he murmured, heart racing. He caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure pushing through the throng, and a knot of dread twisted in his stomach. What if the disturbance was more than just a few injured parties? "Look!" a woman from the back shouted. "They're coming in." The crowd turned as several police officers filtered through, their faces grim, and his heartbeat pounded louder. "Everyone stay calm." One shouted into the chaos, trying to command the room with authority. Mark's mind raced. How could it escalate so quickly? Where were the threats? Just when he thought there might be a reprieve, tension thickened again. He felt an urge to grab Jordan and Andrew, to band together. "I think we need to find a way to help out here," he whispered. "We can't just stand by." Jordan nodded. "You're right. What do you have in mind?" Mark could see Andrew's brows furrow in thought. "We should check for anyone who might be hurt in the other rooms," he suggested. "We can be their eyes outside the chaos." "Then let us split up," Mark proposed. "Jordan and I will see if anyone else needs medical help. Andrew, keep an eye on the brother. He needs someone to stay with him." As they began to set their plan into motion, Mark felt the crowd's anxiety hovering around him. He caught another sight of the brother, desperately trying to keep up with the medics. A pang of empathy shot through him. "Remember, it's okay to be scared," Mark called back to the man just as they were parting. "We'll bring her back to you." The brother's response was a mere nod, but the gratitude in his gaze said everything. Mark and Jordan turned, moving quickly toward the back of the building. As they entered another room, they were met with a stark silence, broken only by the distant chaos behind them. Suddenly, Mark heard the faintest sound, a gasp. He rushed to the source, finding another woman sitting on the floor, her face pale and trembling. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. "No," she stammered, "but I can't breathe." Just as Mark started to reassure her, a sudden commotion from the hallway jolted him. The sound of shouting and scuffling reached their ears, sending a warning chill down his spine. "Jordan!" Mark muttered, readying himself. "We need to get out there." But before they could react, the doors burst open. Mark's chest tightened as a man, wild-eyed and shouting, charged forward, a frantic energy radiating from him. "Get out of my way!" he screamed, the crowd parting in shock. Mark's heart raced. Who was this man? What had he done? The chaos felt far from over, and they were just on the brink of something much bigger. As the man continued to storm the room, Mark's breath caught. The night had just begun, and the dangers lurking within those walls were more than he had ever anticipated. What secrets lay in wait? The wild-eyed man burst into the room like a storm, his presence consuming the air and sending a wave of panic through everyone. Mark stood frozen for a moment, processing the chaos unfolding around him. The woman on the floor gasped again. Mark could see the fear creeping into her eyes. Jordan instinctively stepped forward, taking on a protective stance between her and the newcomer. "Sir, please, you need to calm down." Jordan's voice was authoritative, yet even he seemed unsure of the man's next move. "Calm down. Calm down." The man's rage was palpable, and his eyes darted around the room as if searching for an escape. "They're coming, more of them. They'll kill us all." Mark exchanged a worried glance with Jordan. This was no ordinary disruption. There was something deeper at play here, a fear rooted in experience rather than mere panic. Mark took a small step forward, trying to ease the tension that spiraled between them. "Who's coming?" he asked, his voice calm, but his heart thundered in response. "What happened out there?" "I don't know." The man shouted, his breath coming in sharp gasps. "They attacked my friends. I got out while I could, but they're everywhere." With every word, an uneasy knot twisted in Mark's gut. He glanced back at the woman on the floor, still pale but starting to regain her composure. "Sir, we're going to keep everyone safe," Mark said softly, aiming to connect with the man's fear to diffuse his agitation. "But we need specifics. What did you see?" "I don't have time for this." The man yelled, but it was clear he was starting to waver, the tension in his shoulders softening just a hair. "I tried to help them. I really did." Jordan nodded slowly. "Then help us. Tell us where we should go and what we need to do to ensure everyone's safety." Behind them, the clamor of the crowd murmured like a distant ocean, waves of uncertainty crashing against the walls of their sanctuary. Chad was still in the back when I left," the frantic man muttered, finally calming enough to think. "He's not safe. His shop let us go." Mark interrupted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "If he's still there, he needs our help." The urgency of the situation propelled him into action. He turned to Jordan. "You go with the woman, make sure she's okay. I'll get the others." "Wait!" the man shouted, now visibly struggling with his own guilt. What if they are already waiting for you?" "Then we'll be ready," Mark replied without hesitation. "We can't just leave anyone behind." As he rushed toward the doorway, the man reluctantly followed, an uneasy alliance forming between them. Let us go. Mark shouted. They moved through winding halls, senses heightened. With every step, the chaos behind them faded slightly, only to be replaced by the faint sounds of fear and panic echoing throughout the building. Mark felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. On one hand, he was scared of the unknown, scared for the people they were trying to help. But on the other, there was resolve. He couldn't let fear paralyze him now, not when lives hung in the balance. When they reached the back room, Mark paused, taking in the scene for a moment. A flickering light, a door slightly ajar. His heart hammered. Chad! He called out, searching for a response. Silence answered him, leaving a sense of foreboding looming in the air. Suddenly, the man at his side tensed. This isn't good, he muttered, eyes wide. We should never come here. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. What are you talking about? Before he could process the words, a loud crash echoed through the hallway behind them, reverberating off the walls like thunder. Run! Mark yelled, and together they darted through the entrance. But what awaited them outside was far worse than they had anticipated. As chaos threatened to consume them once again, Mark couldn't shake the feeling they were stepping right into the eye of the storm, where secrets dangerous, hidden secrets lingered just out of sight. What awaited them just beyond that door? Adrenaline surged through Mark as he and the wild-eyed man burst into the next hallway. The flickering lights overhead seemed to pulse with uncertainty, casting long shadows that danced around them, mocking their haste. He could hear whispers carried by the wind-like echoes of panic from the crowd behind him. Each step felt weighted by the urgency to find Chad and ensure everyone's safety. Mark! Wait! The man's voice cut through the chaos, a frantic plea laced with desperation. Mark turned, meeting the man's eyes, which were now wide with fear again. Did you hear that? The man hissed, glancing back. They could be right behind us. Before Mark could reply, a loud bang erupted further down the hallway, a sound like metal against metal, as if the world itself were tearing apart at the seams. Chad! Mark shouted, his voice cracking with resolve, echoing off the walls. He took a cautious step forward, forcing himself to breathe, but adrenaline clawed at his insides. We have to keep moving. As they approached a heavy set of double doors at the end of the corridor, they were greeted by chilling silence. Mark's mind raced. Why was it so quiet? The lack of sound was more unnerving than any noise could have been. What if he is not? Mark interrupted, defiant. He is still here. We just need to find him. Before the man could voice more doubts, Mark gripped the cold, rusted handle of the door. With a deep breath, he yanked it open. It creaked ominously, revealing a dimly lit room that looked more like a scene from a nightmare than a place of refuge. Stacks of boxes were haphazardly piled in the corners, and the air was thick with the musty scent of neglect. The shadows shifted eerily, challenging their resolve. Mark called out again, Chad! Are you in here? A faint groan broke through the heavy silence, sending waves of relief crashing over him. Mark? A voice replied, strained and shaky. Without a moment's hesitation, Mark rushed deeper into the room, scanning for any sign of his friend. Panic gripped him as uncertainty settled in his chest. Was Chad hurt? Could they still be in danger? Then, right by an overturned shelf, he spotted him. Chad lay on the ground, surrounded by debris, one leg pinned beneath a heavy crate. Pain etched deep lines into his face, but relief washed over his voice. I told you to stay away. Shut up. We're getting you out, Mark shot back, kneeling beside him, heart hammering as he helped lift the crate just enough for Chad to pull free. With a grunt, Chad managed to free himself, but his face paled as he exhaled. It's too late, Mark. We were wrong to come here. Mark shook his head, not willing to concede. We can't give up now. We have to move suddenly. Outside the building, a series of harsh shouts split the air, cutting through the atmosphere with chilling clarity. They're here. The man next to Mark gasped, eyes darting to the door. "We have to hurry." Mark's heart raced. In the depths of fear and confusion, the reality of their situation crashed down on him. "Okay, everyone, we're making a run for it. On 3. 1 2." Before he could finish counting, the door burst open, splintering under the strength of the assailants, the shadows from the corridor flooding in, faces marked with intent and fury. Mark felt his breath hitch. He estimated he had maybe seconds to act. "Go. Now!" he yelled, shoving Chad ahead while grabbing the man's arm. As they barreled into the hallway filled with turmoil, Mark's mind whirled with questions. Would they escape? What madness awaited them out there? And more hauntingly, who were they really running from? As Mark propelled forward into the chaos, one thought pulsed above the rest: survival. What lay outside could seal their fates forever. The hallway erupted into chaos, the air thick with panic as Mark pushed Chad ahead, heart racing with the weight of urgency. "Keep moving," he urged, adrenaline propelling him into action. Every sense screamed danger. Just as they burst into the main area, the reality of the unfolding nightmare hit them like a tidal wave. People yelled, scattered in fear as the wild-eyed man turned, eyes wide with disbelief at the encroaching threat, shadows rushing in like a predatory cloud. "Mark!" he shouted, gripping Mark's arm. "They're coming for us. They'll hunt us if we stay here." Mark shot back, every ounce of focus on survival now. They had to stick together. Chad wobbled on his feet, and Mark glanced briefly at him. "You good to run?" The unsteady nod was all he got before the screams escalated around them. With a fierce determination, he yanked Chad forward, leading them toward an exit he spotted through the chaos. As they stumbled through the crowd, Mark felt like he was moving in slow motion. The cacophony of panicked voices wrapped around him, but he held on to clarity. The door was so close, just a few more steps, they reached it, Mark flinging it open, and a flood of outside air rushed in, cool, fresh, and filled with the faint sound of sirens. "Go! Out!" he yelled, urging the others through. Once outside, the atmosphere shifted again. Mark glanced back just in time to see several figures slink through the building. They moved fast and with purpose. Heart pounding in his chest, he turned to the wild-eyed man. "What did you get us into?" "Not my fault," he barked back, panic lacing his voice. "I just wanted to warn them. I had to get out." "I know, but we can't stop," Mark shouted back, breathing heavily. Chad finally spoke up, the fear etched on his face replaced with determination. "Then we take control of this. We have to warn the others." He pointed towards the chaos inside. Mark looked into Chad's eyes and saw the strength there. They couldn't let fear keep them grounded. "Okay. But we need a plan," he said firmly. The weight of his decision loomed overhead, but courage surged within him. As they retreated further away from the entrance, Mark could see people milling around in confusion, uncertainty casting shadows where momentary panic had once flourished. "We need to get to the precinct," he declared. "Get others to safety and figure this out together." His voice cut through the noise, rallying a few scattered individuals who were still shaken by the chaos. "Andrew!" he called out, scanning the crowd. A flash of relief hit him as Andrew appeared, his face stricken yet determined. "Did you find any support?" Mark asked urgently. "All I could muster were a few stragglers. They're paralyzed with fear. We need to lead them," Andrew replied, eyeing the nearby throngs with concern. "What's the plan?" Mark took a deep breath to steady himself. "We need to move fast. Gather everyone and lead them toward the precinct's safety in numbers." With urgency guiding their actions, they organized a makeshift team of survivors. Mark felt confident in their solidarity. The wild-eyed man who had followed them now stood beside him. I can help," he said, his voice steadying. Mark nodded. "Good. We need all hands on deck. As they began to navigate through the frightened crowd, guiding them towards safety, Mark felt a profound shift within himself. The doubts that had haunted his thoughts receded. He wasn't just a bystander anymore, he was a catalyst for change, a fighter surrounded by allies. People began to emerge from the building, some still wary but ready to follow Mark's lead. Their eyes held uncertainty, but together they took those first steps toward cohesion. "We're standing together," Mark called out, weaving through the crowd of faces, igniting their spirits with encouraging words. "Together we can make it. Just trust each other." As they pushed toward the precinct, every step solidified their resolve. Mark stole a glance at Andrew, who gave him a thumbs up, a glimmer of faith shining through their shared fight. They reached the police station, where authorities were already mobilizing to address the chaos. Mark turned back, scanning the faces of those who followed. Many were strangers showered in fear, but together they formed a makeshift family. Mark stepped forward, his voice clear and bold against the noise. "We need to report everything, whoever you are. We can't let this go unchallenged. Every act of kindness matters." The crowd murmured in agreement, the atmosphere shifting from fear to a unified strength. The police officers ushered them inside, a sense of security wrapping around them like a protective shield. From the corner of his eye, Mark saw the wild-eyed man take a moment to breathe. I didn't think we could do this," he said, vulnerable yet hopeful. "You've changed," Mark replied genuinely, "and so have we all. We're here for each other now." And in that moment, as the dust of their fears began to settle, the once nerve-wracking night transformed into a defining turning point. Mark, embracing the chaos around them, realized love had begun to bloom unexpectedly from acts of kindness. Perhaps this was the true power of connection, a newfound family in the most unlikely places. As they all stood together, waiting for what would come next, Mark felt a sense of hope rise within him. A warmth sparked in his heart, illuminating the darkness that had shrouded that night. This wasn't just the end. It was the start of something new, and the journey had just begun. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. This is the moment to show your support and help us build our community. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and make a difference. We want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.